Guys, welcome to today's video and a brand new release from Lumenier. This is the QAV-PRO Nano Whoop. It is a 4S Nano Whoop with DJI-03 on board. We're also going to bind it up to the DJI remote as well as the DJI goggles too. We're also going to do a flight test in this series. And today we're going to build this entirely without a soldering iron. So we're going to do it step by step in this instructional and show you how it goes together, start to finish, A to Z. Let's go ahead and get started with the build. If you need more help, please do join the Drone Camp's Discord channel. I'll put that link in the video description. We're talking about FPV 24/7. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the first part of this build for the QAV-PRO Nano Whoop. Okay guys, let me show you what's in the box and what you need to get started. We're going to use the Beta FPV Tiny Trainer F405 AIO 4S flight controller with 20 amp BL-Heli 32 ESCs. We have 4 Lumenier 1303.5 5800 kV motors with a plug and play cable on there, so no soldering needed. 1 DJI-03 air unit and 1 Lumenier QAV-PRO Nano Whoop kit. And for this quad, we're going to be using some HQ props. These are the T 2x2x3 props. And the battery we're going to use for the QAV-PRO Nano Whoop is going to be the 4S 550 milliamp battery from Lumenier. And I mentioned that this was going to be a solderless build. Well, the Beta FPV Tiny Trainer board is going to make it super easier for this build. It has all the motor harnesses already on here for us and the HD setup for the VTX and the DJI camera. So let's go ahead and take a look at what's in the box. This is the exploded view and the quick instructional manual, but in this tutorial we're going to go over everything you need to know to build this and set it up. Let's go ahead and take a look at the frame. You have the top and lower piece here. This is nice 3K carbon fiber, and just under here we have more accessories. We have some aluminum hardware and standoffs, as well as an antenna mount, camera mount, and some new mounts for the 03, which is going to go in the back of this Cinewhoop. These look nicely machined and really well made. Nice and sturdy aluminum. DJI-03 antenna fits just through there and secures into place. I'll show you how this hooks up around the end of this video when we get to that step. And we also have some extra pieces in there as well, some dampeners, some extra hardware. We're going to go over all this hardware, the feet, the 3M battery tape, some extra nuts there, and some TPU accessories, and an XT30 if you need it, also a battery strap and some zip ties. So step one, we're going to go ahead and grab our M2 driver. We're going to grab some M2 bolts. They are M2 by 4mm, are 6 standoffs, and the feet, they're going to go on the bottom of the frame. Make sure that you have your camera mount system up front here. This is the front of the bottom plate, and in the back right here is where the VTX antenna will mount. So go ahead and grab your first mount, your bolt, and your standoff. We're going to come to the outside of the frame right here, and we're just going to screw through into the standoff until it's nice and firm. Don't over tighten. And that feels pretty good right there. So now we'll move on to the next one. And these landing feet are going to install on the outside of the frame all the way around. There should be 4 of them total. The next 2 standoffs go here and here, just on the inside of where your prop guards are going to be. So go ahead and just kind of finger tighten those down, and then use your driver to just gently seat that bolt into place. And you're going to do that on both sides, here and here. Next, you're going to install your DJI camera mount. You can use some Loctite here just to make it hold better. If you don't use Loctite, this screw may vibrate out. So go ahead and place that on there, and take your driver and go ahead and seat that one just firmly. Don't over tighten because you can strip your aluminum camera mount. You don't want to do that. So that looks like that's good, and it's going to look just like this. Now the other side is on, and you should have the flat side on the inside where the camera's going to mount, and the grommets will go on the outside to dampen everything. Now at this point, ready to install the flight controller. So take your F405, run the bolts through the bottom of the frame here, and if you want to, you can use some extra standoffs. You can see the red 4 standoffs underneath mine. That gives it a little more space between the bottom plate and the flight controller. I just don't want to take any chance of this touching this bottom plate and shorting out. It also gives some extra kind of protection here for the USB port on the bottom, making it more flush on the bottom of the frame instead of having it poking out the bottom for breaking off possibly when you land. Now we're going to go ahead and take those nuts, put them on top of these 4 bolts, and mount the flight controller down to the frame. Now at this point, you're ready to install your DJI VTX and your camera. Go ahead and grab these 2 aluminum plates and set them down inside the carbon frame. You'll have left here and right here. And go ahead and grab the 1.6 millimeter bolts, and you're going to use the 10 millimeter ones through the bottom. You're going to remove these 4 screws on the bottom of the VTX coming up through here, and we're going to use the 8 millimeter ones through the top plate to secure this DJI VTX in place. Now once you have all these 4 bolts removed, you can go ahead and set it on the plates. You'll see that the USB port has a slot here. The way that it goes in there is very specific, so we're going to go ahead and set that down, and you'll see that it's nice and flush with those 2 bottom plates. Next, we're going to go ahead and take those bolts and drive them through and into the VTX to secure it. And even though these are smaller bolts, they still have an M2 head on them, so you can use the same driver as you used for the rest of the quad. So first one's in, now go ahead and do the other 3. So at this point, you're ready to plug in your harness from your O3 into your flight controller into this port right here. But what I want you to do is run this wire underneath the VTX unit. There is enough space to get it under there, and then bring it up to the front. That way you don't have any problem putting the top plate on. Now at this point, you're ready to install the carbon arms to the camera mount plate. You'll go ahead and grab 2 grommets here, push those through the carbon mount, and then put 1 single bolt through here into the side plate. So you're going to use your original DJI bolts there. And I have that one already set up so you can see what it looks like. We're going to go ahead and grab the camera now, and we're going to use the longer M2 8 millimeter bolts, and we're going to go through and have 2 bolts on each side. First bolt's going to go in just like this, and I'm not going to over tighten it so that I can still move it to line up the other bolt. Now I'll go ahead and grab the next M2 8 millimeter bolt, drive it right through that grommet, and you should move the camera and feel where it seats, and then go ahead and start driving that one in. And now you have one side done. You can go ahead and grab that carbon plate and do the other side. And now yours should look something like this once you have that original bolt through and secured to the camera harness. Go ahead and grab the next long M2 8 millimeter bolt and go ahead and start driving that one through until you feel it seat into the camera, and then just gently tighten until you get it nice and snug, and you can do the next one, the bottom bolt. Now your camera should be installed to the mount and looks something like this, and these little carbon side plates, they give us just a little bit of bumper protection in the very front, side to side, and you should have your camera installed. So now at this point, you're ready to install your motors, and all we have to do is plug them in. It's super fun. We have motor 1, motor 2, motor 3, and motor 4. Now it looks like they are pins down, so go ahead and make sure your harness is pins down and put in motor 1's harness here and gently press into place. And now we have motor 1 installed, motor number 2, motor number 3, and lastly, motor number 4 right there. Okay guys, to make this top plate go on, when you install your DJI 3 VTX here, you want to run this harness underneath these 2 bottom plates right here. That will give it a nice top mount flush, and it won't stress the cable as much as if you run it over the top of the unit. Now that your motors are installed, go ahead and grab this aluminum antenna mount here, and you're going to run these wires through the slot right here, and then you're going to push the main part of the antenna stem down into this unit. You're going to use 2 M2 4 millimeter bolts to go down through and into the frame. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to remove those 4 bolts on the top of the DJI unit, and you're going to use those M2 10 millimeter bolts, or excuse me, 8 millimeter bolts to go down through the top plate and secure this VTX into place. And now's a good time, before you put this top plate on there, go ahead and grab those zip ties they gave you in the kit and tidy up some of these wires. Now go ahead and grab your top plate. This is the front and this is the back where your antenna is going to mount to. Go ahead and take your XT30 and push it through the TPU mount there in the front of the quad. That's just going to be just above the DJI camera. It's going to be kind of tight in this configuration. You can also turn the board another 90 degrees if you'd like to, give a little more room there, but this is the way I did it for this build, and it fits just snug like this. Now I've got that front bolt on holding the front in. I'm going to go ahead and grab those 1.6 millimeter bolts here and go ahead and drive those down into the DJI unit there, and just go ahead and turn until it's firm. Don't over tighten. And we're going to go ahead and put the other 3 in through the VTX, have that seated, and we'll go ahead and put the rest of the M2 4mm bolts into the top plate, securing this top plate to the center loop. Now moving on to my M2 4mm hardware, I'm just going to go ahead and secure that front end right there. And we'll do the outside parts as well for the prop guards. One here, one here, one here in the center, 2 more on the outside, and 1 in the center. I'm going to tighten all of those bolts up. That should secure the top plate, and next we'll do the VTX installation. Now go ahead and grab your antenna mount and push it underneath that top plate. Grab one of your M2 4mm bolts and go ahead and drive that through and into the antenna mount, just like that. 1 on one side, and now 1 on the other side. And now your antenna is mounted securely in place. Now it's time to mount your motors, but we're going to go ahead and discard those motor bolts that came inside the box with each motor because they're too long for this frame. So Lumenier did give you bolts inside this Nano Whoop kit. So we're going to go ahead and open those up. These are going to be a little bit shorter and they won't touch the inside coils of the motor. That's super important because if your bolt goes up into the motor, you will short out the motor and pretty much kill your motor. So we're going to go ahead and grab these M2 bolts. These are around 2 to 3 mil, and we're just going to go down through the top plate and into the motor. And again, these motors are inverted in fashion, so they point down and your prop will face up on each motor. And now you can put 2 bolts on each motor if you want to save a little bit of weight on this quad. You don't have to use all 4 motor bolts. And to save some time, I think that's what I'm going to do, and it will also lighten up the frame. And again, if you look closely, you'll see that that bolt doesn't come up through the bottom of the base and touch the inside of this motor. Again, that will short out the motor if you do that, so be super careful not to do that with your bolts. And when you're lining up your motors, you just want to make sure that this C-clamp isn't rubbing on the frame and it's completely centered in the frame. Okay, so now you're ready to grab your 3M battery pad and go ahead and put that down. Peel off the sticky tape on one side and just line that up with those hexagonal holes there and push down. Now you have your battery mount fastened down to the top of the quad, and you have a few different links here for a battery strap. And this is an interesting battery strap because it has a pull tab here and it has 2 loops on each side, and those can go just on the side of the frame here. Secure there and secure here. That will hold your battery in place. That's pretty cool the way they did that. Okay, so let's go ahead and set the Nano Whoop on the scale and see what we get without the battery. 134 grams. Now total takeoff weight with the Lumenier 4S 550 milliamp. Let's see what that's going to be. Right around 196 grams total takeoff weight. Way under 250 grams. We could still probably get a mini camera on the top if we wanted to. So now at this point in your build, yours should look something like mine. Now what you need to do is take those zip ties that came with it in the kit, tidy those wires up to the top of the frame so they don't go into the props when you're flying. Also load it up inside Betaflight with the props off and figure out how the props go on your setup. And they should be set up for motor 1, 2, 3, and 4, just like that. You can secure your battery, get that all charged up, bind up your goggles and your transmitter, and you should be ready to go out and fly. If you want to know more about this kit, you can check out the links in the video description, as well as join the Drone Camp's Discord channel, where all of us are chatting about FPV and builds like this 24/7. Long range, cine whoops, and all kinds of cool stuff. Freestyle FPV. We pretty much do it all in that Discord. It's a lot of fun and it's free to join. So I will see you in the Discord. Guys, I appreciate you watching the build video. I'm Justin Davis, and I will see you in the next video where we test fly this. Take care and happy FPV.